podcast. Now, I know it's been a while since the last podcast, I'm well aware, and I know people have been waiting for it, but there's good reason, well, several good reasons actually, why the podcast hasn't happened yet. So the first one is I've been absolutely crazy busy, not just with Dungeonworld, but with other stuff that I do in the real world. More busy than ever, actually. It's probably one of the busiest times of year for me. Also, you can probably hear from my voice, I've not been brilliantly well. So those are two of the reasons, but the main reason is that I keep telling people the big podcast is coming and something big is going to happen, and we are there. We are there tonight. Now, I'm not going to do it immediately, but before the end of this podcast, I will do the big announcement, if you like. A few things I want to talk about, though, before I do that. So first of all, as many players know, the Yahoo groups that we've used for so many years is closing. Well, it's not completely closing, but some aspects are closing, and I suspect that means eventually all the aspects are closed. Now, it's integral to the roleplay of the game. The Yahoo groups has been used for years. It's the main way that I communicate with players outside of the game and give them announcements and stuff. It's going away, and that's not going to change, so we have to react to it. Now, I know some players are going to some of the other group type functions and areas of the web and setting things up, but I really want to encourage everyone, please, to come and sign up to Facebook and to our Facebook Dungeonworld site, because I know there are other groups and I will try and support them where I can, but broadly, the new main area for me to communicate with you guys, with players, is going to be through Facebook. I know some of you are a bit leery of Facebook. You don't have to use it for anything else. You don't need to make loads of friends or get involved with it if you don't want to, but you can just use it if you're leery of it. Just use it for coming to the Madhouse site, but it is going to be my main method of communication. I'll try and support others like I always do, but I really encourage everybody to join the Facebook page going forwards. Okay, what else is there? Halloween special offers, as you know, periodically through the year I do different special offers to encourage people to buy a bit more credit than usual, and they get special gifts if they do it. You will have, if you're a player, already seen many of the offers available. Please do feel free to take them on. The deadline is midnight on the 31st of October, after which they won't be available. So you've got a couple more days and then that's it. You'll run out of time. There'll be no more offers until Christmas. So now's the time to top up on your account if you can, or if you want to. Okay, now talking a little bit about the grand plot. In the game, players are free to do what they want to do, adventure where they want to adventure, go to dungeons, go to overland places, climb the mountains, cross the seas, do whatever they want to do. But throughout it all, in the background, a grand plot tickles away, the kind of the kingdom of Bereni, what the royals are doing, what is going on in the area, and you don't have to be involved in that at all. It was important to me from the start of the game that nobody had to be involved, because that's how it gets clicky and people who don't want to do that sort of thing feel a bit put out. So we've never done that. Nobody is forced to take part in the grand plot. You can just carry on tunneling your way down the dungeons of Drax or Swindlelog or whatever you like, and ignore it all if you want to, and you will never be affected, except to see some things in the background being talked about. Nobody is restricted from where they can go broadly either. You can wander around the map. You're not going to wander into a place where somebody considers you an enemy and kills you. That's not how the game works, and it's not going to affect you. But if you want to be involved, then the main way is in between turns, which you can do we in Facebook in future, but always on the Yahoo groups or on any other groups that you use, or just talking to players directly, setting things up with your guilds and your organisations and just your friends in the game. And that should be fun. There'll be lots of opportunities coming along to do that. Now, going forwards, it's my intention to try and do these podcasts almost every night. There'll be a few exceptions, but almost every night. And that is going to be one of the ways I get information out there about what's going on in the plot. But also the Facebook page is going to be vital to see what's going on and to see how it's progressing. And those people who want to get involved, there'll be lots of roleplay opportunities, but also there'll be in-game opportunities too. Special areas set up for you to go to do things that are happening. I don't want to tell you too much because I'm not going to give it all away. But there will be lots of roleplay. There'll be lots happening in the game. Big changes are coming in the story of the game, but that won't affect your enjoyment or ability to free play if that's what you prefer. Okay, so having said all of that, I'm now going to do the big announcement, which everyone's been waiting for. And you probably, those of you who've played for a while, will know that one of the big NPCs that I control is the Duke Raven of Poldoon. Originally the Duke of Gorst, moved to Poldoon by a previous ruler, and has always been an interesting character, often involved with things that go on in the grand plot. Now, there are player characters involved in this also, but this initial announcement is a letter that has been posted on notice boards throughout the kingdom, written by the Raven of Poldoon. Now, it was first delivered to the royal courts and to the current ruler, and then it was delivered to all of the Lords Crusader and all the other dukes and duchesses of the kingdom, and then it was posted all across the land on notice boards, and people are now seeing it and talking about it. And I'm going to read the letter in its entirety to you. This is a letter from the Raven of Poldoon. For centuries, the kingdom of Bereni has been under the control of the Tredak family. As rulers of the kingdom, they have been in charge of every aspect of our home. At times, they have steered the kingdom well and through great peril and potential catastrophe. At other times, their judgment and leadership has been called into question. But what is the reason for the Tredak's absolute control? A prophecy. We have based our civilization on the words of some mystic from times gone by, and control has been maintained through fear of a return to the time of thunder. Now, we could talk about whether the prophecy remains valid, or whether it has been proven faulty. We could talk about whether a ruler was murdered and his power usurped. We could talk about how the current holder of the title of king was not the one chosen by the courts and the people as per the laws of the land. We could talk about how foreign drugs are pouring into the kingdom and the crown seems to do nothing to prevent the great damage they do to the poorest and most vulnerable. We could even discuss the fact that strange enemies, the so-called Red Knights, seem able to conquer and murder with impunity. What about how the law seems to be quite literally made up as we go along? As Duke of Poldoon, the third city of Bereni, and to the most populous now, I have a duty to the people of Poldoon first. I judge that it is not in their best interests to blindly continue to accept this situation. Recently, I took an excursion to the city of Lionel to visit the tombs of law and examine our historic legal system and precedents. In the 19th Journal of Law, written by Adnius, the royal lawyer, I found reference to a duke's imperative. The law states that if the duke judges that there be a question to the legality of a ruler, the duke can withdraw the city from control of the crown while that challenge is determined. I hereby decree that Poldoon will be so withdrawing. 3 other cities, I believe, will follow in the next few days. I have no wish to pull this kingdom into civil war. This is a legal declaration and I expect it to be treated as such. But make no mistake. If the Crown intends to try and use force of arms to prevent this, Poldoon and its allies stand ready to defend themselves. Until the legal matters are resolved, Poldoon is now an independent city-state within Bereni, not subject to control by the Crown. Thank you, the Raven of Poldoon. Now, I won't say too much more, except that potentially this is the biggest change to the Kingdom of Bereni since the game began over 20 years ago, real time. And I expect that guilds and notable characters and normal folk as well within the kingdom, the characters, will now have to consider what to do next. I will be waiting for a response from the king and his allies, out of character sent to me as the GM, which will then be responded in character. And depending on what the king decides to do, depends on what happens next. It's going to be a bumpy ride. See you soon.